All right, we're back. Let me make sure we're recording. We are indeed recording, Tyler. So we're back.
Hey,
Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 96. This week, it was Tyler's pick, and he picked a movie called Audition from 1999 that me and him both knew of simply because of the female fucking God, what do you call the villain? Not the protagonist.
he was the perfect
Antagonist.
heroine.
Yeah. That was a good Mitch Hedberg joke where he's like, I'm addicted to heroin, female superhero. So I don't remember how, but it was good. But anyway, we knew it because of her. What was her? Asara? Akira? They said her name a bunch. I should have wrote it down, but I didn't. But Audition from 1999, cult classic, if you will. Picked it mostly because of that girl, but also it's been a while since we've done a foreign movie.
Plus, let's be honest, it has like raving reviews. Everyone
It
thinks
does.
the moon of this movie.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think of this movie, Tyler?
I think it was the biggest waste of 2.5 hours I've ever spent, and I would give this movie a 2.
And the weird thing was, it was only an hour 55 minutes.
I had to rewind some parts
Oh yeah.
because I thought I missed something,
Uh huh.
and I didn't. It was just dumb.
Yeah.
I'm actually being serious, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna give this movie an 8. It was amazing. And that's that's the whole reason I started with you, because I knew we weren't gonna agree on this one, so I wanted you to get your your low ball out of the way, so I could come in with my 8.
You gave this an 8.
It was amazing. Fight
I
me,
mean,
fight
everyone
me.
has their opinions. I look forward to you defending these opinions, but okay.
Oh yeah. There's some bullshit, by the way, at the end that I read what people said that it was supposed to be, and I was like, no, that's not what it is at all. Like, I had my own thing about that, and it went with the title and everything, but everyone else was like, no, it was this. And I was like, no, you're fucking stupid. But anyway, so clearly I'm the bigger expert on this movie than these people who have
Clearly, I know nothing of nothing.
yeah, who have studied it for you know,
Film
however
school and
many.
shit.
Yeah, yeah, I know more than them. Um, but all right, spoiler warning for Audition.
It's really bad.
We're gonna ruin everything. It's amazing. We're gonna ruin everything about it. So you've been warned.
To be fair, I was talking trash about this before you even watched it. Like,
Yeah, you were like 40 minutes in, and you were like messaging me like, "This is the most boring piece of shit I've ever seen," and then you were like, "Oh, Lady just took her titties out." That was the two things I remember the most. Were the it's really boring, and then Lady took her titties out.
usually we go through this whole movie. Can we just skip the first 50 minutes?
Wow, but that's the bill.
There was no build. Like, this is a guy whose wife dies when he's young, and it's him and his son, and then his time shifts to like,
Well,
what, 15 years later?
it was 7, so I don't know how young the guy really was. I mean, the whole movie they try to say he's like in his midlife crisis, and it's like, well, it hasn't been that long. I mean, it's been 7 years, but still, he must have been at least like 35, 36. I guess that is young, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and then he decides he wants to date again. Boom. Okay.
Not even date, get remarried.
Yeah.
Very different cultural things there as well. Like it wasn't really I'm gonna go out and fall in love, or try to meet someone and fall in love. It was like, I'm going out to look to get remarried, and like he had a qualified list of skills and stuff he wanted of his wife, most of which were just shit that his old wife did. Like,
Yeah.
we get like, there's a line where like his buddy, he's like, I want someone who can play piano and does ballet, and he's like, oh, that was your wife. Like, he just calls him out on it and shit. His friend is a G this whole movie, and is like trying to like get through to him the whole time. And it's like, you're going fucking crazy, man, but he never listens to him.
It's gonna happen when you or Mav find a girl that lets you touch her boobs. So there was a lady. He's at a restaurant with her, and he walks up to her, and he was like, "Oh, this is my girlfriend." And the lady was like, "No,
That was
don't
the
date
dead
her."
wife.
Was it the dead wife? That's what I
Yeah.
thought it was. But I was like, why would he be introducing his new girlfriend to his dead wife?
There was a point where it's during that point you're talking about. We'll get to the movie in a minute, but there where it's flashing those girls, and it shows the one that was the son's girlfriend. But the thing is, they only ever had her once in the movie, so I remember being like, man, I'm sure a bunch of people were probably like, who is this girl? You know, that just randomly pops up in the middle of this like dream sequence he's having. But I just remember she was, and it helps that she's wearing like the outfit, I guess, like a school outfit. But yeah, I remember like being like, some people aren't gonna remember that's the son's girlfriend or whatever. I thought the son was gonna have a way bigger part in this movie. Um, Maybe that's because the movie literally opens up with him, like him walking down the hallway. So I thought maybe since it was doing the time jump, the movie was gonna focus on the son or something like that, but it didn't. Like the son doesn't really do like have any role to play in this movie. He technically saves the day when we get to the end, which that was something. What little I knew about this movie, I did not think that the day was gonna be saved. I thought that this girl got away scot free. That was how I always thought about this movie, but when we get to the end, she doesn't, and I was like, oh, okay. I thought she lived. I don't know why, but I did. Um, the movie starts off with a little kid, like I mentioned, walking down the hallway of what we very soon can realize is a hospital, because he's carrying like this. It almost looks like, oh, it was like a dinosaur science project type thing, because that kid's super into biology and dinosaurs.
I think it was like get well soon thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it says get well sued on it, but it was like it looked like a science fair project.
Yeah.
But he's carrying, yeah, and it says get well soon. And so you kind of realize, oh, he was visiting his mom. I don't know why you immediately go to he's visiting his mom, but you just kind of know.
Well, it shows her laying in the bed. But...
Well, it does add, but you see the get well soon card first, and I was like, oh, he's visiting his mom, even though it could have been anyone, you know. But yeah, and then we pan over into the room that ends up being his mom laying there in the hospital bed. They never say what she dies of, I don't think. I assume it was cancer. That's just kind of the generic, you know, like, oh, someone died young, and it's usually like cancer, you know. But she's just...
Oh,
what's up?
she probably killed herself because her son was such a fucking loser. No?
Why you don't like the dinosaurs and stuff, man?
Yeah, come on. He was pretty loser. Like,
listen,
anyways,
there's a point. Keep that in mind, because there's a point where I remember having that thought, like, "Oh, you're a fucking loser" in a minute. But yeah, he's walking down to visit his mom. She's sort of just sitting in bed, just kind of staring off at nothing. And what we'll learn is her husband is like on his knees next to the bed, and he's trying to talk to her. But of course, right as the son is about to walk in with his get well soon card, this bitch flatlines and dies right there. And so the doctor sort of goes over and like takes her pulse and kind of marks down time of death. And when he walks out of the room, the dad looks over and sees his son sitting there, and he's like, "Oh." And I can't remember, what did the kid say? He's like, "I wanted to give this to mom," or something like that. He said something. But the dad was like, "Oh, come on," you know. And so they go walking away. And so that's the opening of the movie. And then we flash to 7 years later. By the way, also, I want to say real fast, was it just me, or did this movie look like shit? Like, it only came out in 99, but like it looked really bad. Like the video quality of it. I don't know if that's maybe what, I don't. Maybe if they had different quality of footage over in Japan, but I don't think so. But I don't know.
The quality matched the story.
Fuck you. I couldn't find a budget for this movie, so I don't know how much money they spent on it. But like we've watched other movies that are older than this that look better than like this '99 movie. And I swear they switch at one point because there's a part where later on where I remember it looked pretty good, and I was like, did y'all switch like the film you were using in the middle of this? Like it looks completely different, but it's 7 years later, and the dad and the son are now like, I don't think they moved. I think they're still living in the same place. But these motherfuckers, they live like next to the ocean or some shit, and they're on these rock sides fishing into the like choppiest, heaviest wave looking water. I don't know how you could even tell if you had a bite.
Isn't it so weird to see their beaches compared to ours?
Yeah, yeah.
But California has beaches like that too.
Yeah.
It's just like, it blows my mind. I'm like, where do you build the castle?
Yeah. And the dad is even like, we should leave. The waves are too high. And as he says that, he looks over and like his kid's reeling in a fish, and he's like, "Oh, are you a little baby? Can't catch a fish?" He doesn't put it like that, but that's what he says. And so his dad's like, I'm just fishing for the big ones, And so they're kind of just shit talking each other, dad, son stuff. And then the dad gets a bite, and he reels it in, and he catches what I guess he considers a big one, which I guess it was a good size or whatever. But he's like, "Oh man, this is too big for us. We'll share it with fucking Ray or whatever, that the nanny, or I assume she was like
a maid, right?
Maid, yeah, puppy watcher is what I refer to her as in my notes all the time, but yeah, they go home and then they cook it, and man, I'm not a fan of like the fish with the bones and everything in it. So when they were like showing it on the plate, I was like, disgusting. I was like, I don't like it. When's the last time you ate a fish with bones in it, Tyler?
2 days ago.
Where'd you get it?
Store? They have it in Publix. You can get like a whole trout.
Yeah.
When was the last time you ate a fish with bones?
Years. It was at like a restaurant. I remember I ordered the fish. I bit into it. I was like,
I think I had catfish like 2 weeks ago. They had bones in it too.
I think that's probably what I ordered, was like catfish, and it had bones. I'm not a fan. As they're home though, we got our first look at this cute ass beagle puppy that's walking around here, and as soon as I saw him, I said, "Man, he's fucking adorable. No way he's gonna live this whole movie." I was like, you're just not gonna make it, Shiloh. After dinner, the dad's drinking like this whiskey that he drinks throughout the whole movie, and his son asks him why he never got remarried. And the dad is kind of like, I don't know, why are you asking that? And the kid's like, I don't know, I just think you should,
No, he says he looks depressed, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, he looks lonely, and yeah, and he just, he said something.
He's like, my son says I look dreary or something. There's like a phrase they use.
Yeah, because, and he's like, you should get remarried. And then right after that, the dad, the weird thing is, I think the guy, whoever he's talking to in this next scene, I don't think we ever see him again. Because it pans over, and the next scene is the dad talking to this dude at, like, his work, I guess. And they're watching, like, footage of a rock concert.
Yeah.
And I don't think you ever see this guy again. And the guy's like, look at this. This is a gathering of the lonely. No happy person would go to a show like this. I was like, why are they shit talking? Like, and the dude's like, all of Japan is lonely. And this shit, which I've heard that a lot, that like Japan is like one of, if not the loneliest, like, countries in the world, despite how many people there are, because everyone's just kind of secluded from
man.
each other and shit.
Go to Pornhub and type Japan in. They're getting lit over there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sex.
I mean,
That
think about it though. Like, it's pretty lonely here. Like we're getting there, right? Like, because now, like, I don't want to make this a
well, I think
political or
everyone's
whatever.
getting there.
But like now, you can't even like walk up to someone and be like, "Yo, let's go have dinner," and they'll be like, "You pig," you know. And it's getting weird.
Would you say that it's getting pretty strange? Life is Strange 3 coming out soon.
Never really played the second one.
They're shit, so can't say that. They're people really like that.
Anyway,
What?
I think when you get to a certain age, it just feels like that.
I
And
don't.
you're not there yet, but you'll see.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully you won't. Hopefully you'll get married soon and everything will be great and grand.
No, I'm gonna be dead by 30. Um. um so. So anyway, yeah. So that was a scene that just kind of talks about loneliness and shit. And then, like I said, I don't think we ever see that guy again because he was a weird, like, middle-aged bald dude.
He was like an editor or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
He never. And he was like, he's like, everyone here's sad. And he's like, aren't you sad? He goes, well, aren't you? He goes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
So the dad, like I said, I don't know any of these people's names, so I'm just gonna call him the dad. The dad is like, all right, well, I'm gonna head home now. You know, he's at work, he's leaving. As he's leaving, this girl rushes out to catch him as he's going into the elevator, and she's like, I'm getting married soon. And he's like, all right, cool, you know, I'm happy for you. And he's like, who are you marrying? And she's like, you don't know him, you know? And he's like, all right, congrats. And he kind of gets in the elevator and it closes. And as it's going down, it like shows her again. And she does like a very small, weird smile that I was like, because going in, you know that like the villain is like this female. So I was like, is that her? Like, because I was still like trying to figure out which one it was gonna be. But yeah, she has this weird smile, and then we'll get more into that story. Even though I think you kind of figure out, you know, already what was going on there. The dad goes to a bar where he meets up with his main buddy. That's going to be the buddy throughout the whole movie. The one I mentioned earlier that was a G that's trying to talk sense into him the whole time.
Let's call him business partner, right?
All right. The business partner, you know.
You know, buddy, business partner, whatever. But
Yeah.
there's so many fucking dudes in this. There's no way we'll be able to keep them.
They're at this bar, drinking, smoking, doing what you do at a bar. And he tells them that, you know, he's thinking about getting remarried and stuff. And the guy's like, why would you want to do that? And he's like, I don't know, you know, it just seems like it's time, all that shit. This is when he describes what he wants, and he's like, I'd like someone who could dance, maybe have a job, you know, maybe knows how to dance and stuff. Wait, I said that already. Sing and stuff, you know. And the dude immediately is like, that sounds like your wife. And he's like, you know. Right before this, by the way, I forgot to mention, they have like a scene where like they're talking, and then like some girls over in a corner like laugh really loudly, and the dude's like, look at these stuck-up bitches. Like, he was really, really aggressive. He was like, what is this goddamn country coming to? And he's talking about how, like, you know, why aren't there any more, like, decent girls? So they're all in hiding or something like that. So then they're talking about this getting remarried and shit. As he's talking about this, by the way, and he's talking about what he wants, it zooms out a bit, and there is a woman sitting, like, at the very opposite end of the table from them. And I can't help but wondering if that was supposed to be the girl and she was like listening in to this dude's conversation at all. Because I don't know how far along she like planned shit, Also, I have a weird theory that I don't know if she planned any of it really later.
I think it's like whatchamacallit, The Strangers, where it's like, why us? And he's like, you were home. Like, I think it was just crazy bitches be crazy, yo.
Yeah, but there was something. I'll get to it, but there's a thing where I had a moment where I was wondering if like her plan was to do what she ends up doing, or if there's a certain thing that made her do it, and I'll talk about that. So anyway, then what I thought happened is I thought the dude says, "Well, why don't you have an audition?" Right? And I thought he legit meant they were just gonna have like a
audition the lady.
Yeah. And then it cuts immediately from that to the dude bringing what I thought was like a flyer that said the audition of love on it or whatever. And I was like, this dude's legit just going to have like a game show to find his new wife. But apparently these guys are in like the movie business or something.
Your television or something.
Yeah. Because what he's done is he's gone and written a script that basically the woman in it is like his ideal woman that he would want to marry. So his plan is to get people who would fit that role to come and audition, and then throughout the movie he would work to get closer with them. And so it took me a little bit to figure out that's what was going on. I was like, oh, okay, it's not really an audition just to get married. At least not to these girls. They don't know that when they're coming in, but he knows, like, he's like, I'm just looking for my, which nowadays, you can't really make a movie where it's like, I'm making this TV audition for someone to come fuck me, like, it's like,
I think it happens more than you would think.
I'm sure, but, what was,
famous, like,
Judd Apatow, right?
Yeah.
And, fucking, what's his name? Woody Allen and shit.
Well, that's completely different. He married his own stepdaughter.
But he fucked her.
Well, yeah, but that was like when she was 11. It was a whole different thing.
I thought he casted a movie and then he like banged the actress in it.
No. That's a whole can of beans because like you have people who love him who are like, no, and then other people are like, nah, he did his own daughter.
Yeah, there's a whole that I remember. I don't know why this one pops up, but I remember the My Bloody Valentine remake from like 2010. The guy who's the director has a scene of himself like banging the super hot chick in the movie, and it was like, gee, guy, I wonder why you decided to add this one, and like, but anyway. So they're gonna set up this audition. There's also this random kind of part where not random, I guess, but there's this part where I think it was the business partner who's like, all right, I'm heading over to this radio station now to help with this thing called like it was something about heroines, but it had like a name. Fuck. I don't know, but it was kind of like the things where you buy the tapes and you put them in and it's like you were strong, like that's what it sounds like, but it's a radio station. Yeah.
Self-esteem. I don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah. So he's in a traffic jam when this starts playing over the radio, talking about you could be the next, the next great
heroine.
Yeah, and then the references it gives, it was like Julia Roberts. And it was like, what? When was Julia Roberts?
I wonder how much of this movie kind of lost the translation, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the other movie with Nicolas Cage or whoever who was in Lost in Translation. Fuck.
I'll leave chat again, but I've already done that.
Yeah, you've already done it. The only reason I bring this scene up even is because there's a shot in it. Well, there's two shots, but there's one where as he's listening to it and he's stuck in this traffic jam, there's a taxi that is like pulling up next to him, and they frame it so you see him and the taxi. Did you think that someone was going to be in the backseat of that taxi that was like pulling up?
No.
I did, 100%. I was like,
we'll be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I watched this movie. I wasn't sleepy or nothing like that. But the first 50, like I said, we're getting up to the point where the lady pulls her tits out. But, like, we've gone over this, and it's taken us 10 minutes. And we've been dicking around talking about other stuff with it. But we're talking, this is 50 minutes of the movie, guys.
Yeah. Well,
like,
there is
get to the audition.
There is a lot of the one of my criticisms. There is a lot of those shots where like early on the dad's like, I gotta do dishes, and then you get like a minute shot of him doing dishes, and it's like, did we really need to see him doing dishes though? You know, there's a lot of those random kind of shots in this movie. But yeah, I thought for sure someone was gonna be in the back of that taxi, and no one was. But then right after that, it fades out into another thing coming up where there's a radio playing, and there's a little girl sitting in the corner of her room listening to the radio. And I was like, who is this little girl? And now I wonder, like, is that supposed to be the girl? But it was because there's a lot of flashes to her as her younger self throughout the movie. Or was it just like a random little girl that was sitting in there listening to her fucking the radio? Yeah.
Yeah. Your guess is as good as mine.
I don't know, but anyway, when that scene after it shows the little girl, we go to the guy getting home, and the nanny's there or whatever. And the dog is running around here. For some reason, I thought they had done another time jump, and this was his wife, because I think this was the first time they showed her in the movie. Yeah. So I was like, oh, they did another time jump. He's already like remarried now, and like, how's the story gonna progress from here? But no, it was just the nanny, and she's like cleaning shit up. She's leaving right now. Once again, we get a shot of the beagle running around looking adorable and shit. Dad goes upstairs. He pulls out all the applications he's gotten for the audition. And this is when I still thought it was just an audition to get married. So I was like, God damn, he's getting a lot of a lot of applications. He gets a call from his business partner. The business partner is like, hey, you got to narrow your applications down to just 30 that will audition. And so the guy's like, 30, you know, and he has like 100 or something here. So he's like, all right, whatever. He goes to drink this tea or whatever he's drinking, and he spills some. He's like, shit. And the tea just happens to land perfectly on the sheet of the girl who will end up being the main girl throughout the movie. And he pulls it out, and he looks at her application, and immediately sees, you know, she knows piano. She did classical ballet for like 12 years. She writes this whole essay about how, like, you know, she's really interested in the story, and she like hurt her hip when she was young, so she had to quit ballet, and how it was kind of like the death of, you know, herself and all this stuff. And like, just as where, like, you know, she knows how it feels to die, and, you know, now she's trying to reach for life and all this stuff. In between this, as he's reading this, you get a flash to his wife, his dead wife, sitting up in her hospital bed, just like stare. And I remember being like, that's kind of a creepy shot, like just the dead wife sitting there.
There's creepier shots in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we're thinking of the same one, but I got one in mind.
I'm sure we are.
But yeah, so he's reading this, and from that moment on, basically, he's like hooked on this one girl. Like, going into the audition, that's the one that he's interested in. When he gets the audition, this is when I finally realized that what they're doing is they have this movie for the script that they wrote, and that's what these girls are auditioning for. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this kind of makes more sense, you know. The son gets home that night, and he brought a date with him. And so the dad, being like a cool dad, I guess, he like lets him eat his dinner, and then he like takes the dog, and he's like, "All right, I'm going for a walk." And then as he's leaving, he's like, to the son, and the son's like, you know. Also, the girl says they met in like, because they both like biology and dinosaurs and shit. so, you know, there's that.
Fucking nerd.
Yeah, yeah. Um. So they go to the audition. We finally get to the audition. And man, did I not expect this to be a whole, like, it felt like 10 minutes of just this, basically a comedy audition bit where they're, like, asking these ridiculous questions. Girls are like, the first girl up, they ask her what her father does. And she's like, "Oh, what does my father do? How can I answer that? Next question." And so immediately I was like, Yakuza. Like, I was like, she can't answer the question, you know?
To be fair, you've been playing a lot of Yakuza.
I have been playing a lot of Yakuza, so... yeah, so we get a full comedy montage. There's one point that I remember that it was one of the only times in this comedy montage that I actually kind of giggled, which was they, like, look over and there's just, like, a straight-up 60-year-old woman sitting there, like, waiting, and they're just kind of quiet looking at her, and then it goes back to, like, you know, all these other women. In the middle of all this is when the girls randomly get naked, and that's the girl that Tyler is like, took her titties out, which I wasn't expecting that to be the context of what you were talking about, but yeah, so some girls get naked. I mean, she's not the only one that gets naked, because there's quite a few girls who we see, like, are taking off their skirts or whatever.
Yeah, that's the only one you get to see titties over. Right?
Yeah. Girls are tap dancing, you know, doing all types of weird shit.
Also dancing. There's like she's doing like the classic like kimono dance with the little fan or whatever.
They have one girl randomly come in here talking about how she tried to commit suicide 3 times and they put her in a mental hospital and all, you know.
That's a weird one because I thought she was gonna be it because they were like, okay, we're done. She's like, I'm not, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so I wrote down in my notes. I was like, this is going on way too long.
Just had that same note 7 times.
Oh yeah. So finally, at the end of all this, I think literally the last girl, number 30, is the girl from the application that the dude spilt the tea on.
Well, he spots her in the waiting room earlier.
Yeah, but that was a bullshit scene that I wasn't gonna mention.
It was real bullshit
because
he has no clue it's her.
Yeah, they make him take a break, and he goes to the bathroom, and he sees like the back of her head, and he's like, huh? You know. But she finally comes walking in, and the business partner dude who's sitting next to him is conducting like a real audition and asking her about like real questions and stuff. And then about a minute into it, the dad just takes over and doesn't even ask a question. He's basically just talking about her essay and how like he felt connected to her, and he was surprised how mature she was for her age. And goes on for like 2 minutes just about how great her essay was. And you can see, like, the longer he goes, the business partner's like, like, just looking at him from the side. And finally, once he's done, the girl is like, oh, thank you, or whatever. And then the guy's like, are you finished? You know? And he's like, yeah, I'm done.
He does give him a hard time, and he's like, are you going to ask any of these people anything?
Yeah.
And then the very next one, he goes, like, all in.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and that's basically the end of that interview. And after that, we do get a scene where the business partner is like, man, you're just in there fucking, your dick's hard and shit. Like, he's like, you know, you're just not even asking her questions. You're just, you know, he's like, you need to calm down. So dude goes home, eats dinner. This is the part I was talking about where the kid is dinner's ready, so he's like cleaning the dishes real fast, and he's like in a hurry to leave.
Well, you had to watch him eat out of this big ass bowl for like 3 minutes.
Yeah. And so the dad is like, "Why are you in such a hurry?" You know, and I was thinking he was gonna be like, "I got a hot date with you know, whatever the girl's name was," but nah, he goes, they just discovered a new dinosaur. He's going to the fucking museum or whatever to look at this new dinosaur. And I was like, oh man, you're a fucking geek. so, um, so yeah, so the dude, the son's gone. He's home alone. He goes back upstairs and is just looking at that girl's application again. He can't stop looking at it. And on her application is her phone number. And so he decides to call her. So he calls her up in the middle of the night. He's like, "Hey, this is the guy from the interview, all that stuff." And she's like, "Oh, I really appreciate what you said about my essay and all this." And then he's like, "Would you like to meet up to talk about more stuff, over dinner or whatever?" And she's like, "Sure, we can do that." So she agrees to meet up with him. He hangs up. He's all happy. He's like, "Yeah," he's doing like the fist bump in the air. Immediately after that, his buddy calls him and is like, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you, there's something weird about that final girl. There was something about her that I couldn't figure out." When they talked to her in their interview, they had asked her, because she wrote down she had like singing experience or whatever. And she said that, she was gonna work with, or she was in contact with this dude, Mr. Shibata, from this music agency.
Yeah, director Shibata. Or whatever.
Yeah. And that was her contact there. And they were like, "Oh, okay." So when he calls her, he says, something felt weird about her. So I called Ace Records, which when I heard that, I was like, "Ace?" Yeah. And they said that they didn't have a record of a director Shibata being there or whatever. But apparently the guy does exist, but he's been missing for a year and a half. It's like he just vanished. That's what he says, right? So he's like, there's just something weird about her. Immediately at that point, when you get a call that this guy's been missing for a year and a half, that's the point where I think to be fair, they do it where I think this guy's already deep in at this point, like in love with this girl. And they talk about throughout this movie, like, love makes you blind and all this shit. But man, if there isn't like a big red flag I've ever seen in my life, it's like the girl that she's talking about has been missing for a year and a half,
It'd make it really different if, like, the guy was like a horn dog, right? If he was just trying to get laid, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I would still call her," But it's not like that at all. He's like, "I'm looking for a wife," and you're just like, "What?"
Yeah, keep that in mind what you said, because I'll come back to that. You won't keep it in mind, but we'll try to remember.
I mean, I said it, so it was already in my mind.
It is in your mind, but then you released it through your mouth. So now it's just kind of in the aura around you.
I wish that's how it worked. I wish the shit I said would get out of my head.
Yeah. So the next day, the dude goes on the date with that chick. As he's there, I do appreciate he immediately like asked her about Shibata, and it was like, we called them, and they said, and she's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, to be fair, he doesn't even say that he's been missing. He just says that we called and asked about him, and she immediately goes, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I lied about that. I never actually was in contact with him. I was just, advised to tell you that I had been in contact with him because they said it wasn't a good look if you had never, had been talking to anybody or whatever." And so immediately he's like, "Oh, okay, that sounds reasonable," They spend the day talking. I don't think they really go over anything too important on this date that I can remember. They go into more shit on later dates, but I think this is just kind of an introductory date. They do end up talking to the point they're the only people in the restaurant. Like, it's just everyone else is cleared out. When they're leaving, the girl says that, she would like to spend more time with him because, she's lonely and she doesn't, have many male friends around and all this shit. And so he's like, yeah, of course. We get another scene of the dad talking to his business partner, and the guy is telling him, that you're way too interested in this girl and you just met her. And he's like, "Listen, we weren't born yesterday. This girl's too good to be true. She doesn't have any boyfriends. She's smart, all this stuff. Like, it's like she's been untouched for years. Like it's too good. You know, they can't get into contact with any of her references. Like none of them. The bar that she says that she works at 3 times a day or 3 times a week, to like make ends meet. She like lives a minimalist life, so she just works like that. The bar, like, they can't even find the bar. Like the guy's like, I can't even find it. Where so the dude's like, don't call her for a while. Something's weird about her, and so the guy's like, all right, throughout the next couple days, we see literally the first night, the dude like has the phone in his hand, and he's like, and he doesn't call her, but clearly, he wants to. That night, when the dude is sleeping, we get another set of kind of creepy shots where we see one.
Have you ever felt like that in your life? Where you like calling a girl and you want to call her, but you shouldn't, blah blah, and so on and so on. That urge where you want to call like every part of you, but you shouldn't.
Not call, but text it.
Where
you're like, man, I just texted this bitch like 20 minutes ago. I don't know,
It's a weird feeling. So I don't know if you really identified with it, right? But I did, and I was like, man, fuck that bitch,
when that
Maybe I'm
dude's
jaded. That's what it is.
when that dude's sleeping that night, we see a shot of the girl in her apartment, and we only see a little bit of her apartment, but it looks like a shithole. It looks like it's just like a wood floor, and there's like some random like sack looking thing over in the corner.
Well, to be fair, she does say early on, like in her audition, that she's not poor.
Yeah.
But she's not rich by any means.
Yeah.
And like she's like, I have enough to live.
She's like, as long as I can afford books and CDs, I'm all right. Yeah. And she has her telephone literally just sitting on the floor, and she's like just sitting there looking at it. And we see a shot of that, and then we get another shot of her like standing behind a tree. And she's like
looking,
yeah,
in the snow, and she's like no jacket, whatever.
Yeah, and it was like, whoa, what's happening here?
Kind of weird.
So the next day, back at work, fucking eyes itching. That chick from earlier is about to leave. That had caught the guy at the elevator when he was going to leave earlier on.
Secretary, I guess we call her.
Something, yeah. So she's about to leave. She's like telling everyone, bye, I'm done with work. And they're like, all right, see you later. But before she leaves, she turns and heads back to the guy's office and walks in and is like, hey, I'm leaving. And he's like, oh, okay, goodbye, And he like looks down and is messing with. And she just keeps standing there like she wants to say something, but she's not saying anything. And the guy's and he looks up and he's like, oh, sorry, did you have something to say? And she's like, no, I'm fine, and leave. And by that point, I think you're kind of like, all right, well, clearly, I think these people banged at some point.
The weird thing is I still don't know if they did.
I think they did. Only because of the thing later on, but the dude, we still get a bunch of scenes of him like picking up the phone and he's like thinking about calling her, but he doesn't. He gets to the point where he picks up the phone one last time and he even like hits the first button on the phone, and then he's like, he puts it down and he gets all his shit and he goes to leave and he walks down the hall. And then as he gets about halfway down the hall, he stops and he looks back to his office. And as he turns back, we cut over to the girl's apartment and her phone starts to ring and her head is like lowered. And we see her slowly start to smile as the phone is ringing. And then the sack that's been sitting there randomly, there's a fucking person in there. And they just start thrashing around in this sack, and I was like, whoa. Whoa, what was that? So yeah, that was at that point I think it was pretty clear, like, all right, something's wrong with this girl.
I would have blown my mind if all the fucks who like this movie didn't post that all the time.
Oh, do they? I've never seen it, so
yeah.
So that was good. I had never seen that part. I didn't see any of this. Like, even later at the end, with the, basically the torture stuff that we'll get to, I hadn't seen any of that either. So all that was new to me. The only thing I'd seen is the poster of her holding the needle. That's the only thing I'd ever seen of this movie. So she answers the phone again, and they agree to meet up for dinner. We see them the next night. They're having dinner again. She's like, I didn't think you'd call me again. It's been a while. And he's like, oh yeah, whatever. Then he's like, hey, what was that bar you said you worked at? And she like says the name of it and like the address. And he's like, oh, maybe I should come by for a drink one day. And she's like, you don't really need to. And he's like, oh, okay, but then he goes, oh yeah, by the way, about the movie, apparently the sponsors didn't like the story, so they put the movie on hold. That's what he says. Which I don't know if that's true, or if like there was really no movie, if they never planned on making a movie in the first place. They must have, right? Because like his whole plan was to spend time with them throughout the movie. But maybe he is just telling the truth, and like the sponsors just didn't like the story, and so they put the movie on hold. But either way, the movie's not happening. So he's like, sorry about that. I know you were probably dependent on it for like income and all this shit. But she's like, oh, it's whatever. And then at the end of it, they agree to go on more dates and shit. I don't know if there's a time jump in between this scene and what I'm about to talk about next, but I hope there is, because the next scene we get is the guy going back home to his son, where he finally tells her about this chick that he's been dating, and we learn she's only 24. I think that's the first time they've mentioned her age.
What is his son doing?
He was like, he was in his room, and there was a bunch of dinosaurs on the room. I don't remember what he was doing.
He loves his computer looking at dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Fucking nerd.
And so
he didn't look away either. Like he was just talking while looking at the computer.
Yeah.
Like,
and so he's like, oh yeah, she's 24, and the kid's like, oh, she's older than my age than she is you. And the kid is like, have you proposed to her yet? And he's like, no, I'm taking her away this weekend. I'm going to propose to her then. So dude's already like going to ask her to marry. So I hope that there was a time jump and they've been on more dates. Because at this point, they've literally been on 2. And in between those 2, he couldn't call her for a couple days because his buddy was like, we don't even know who this chick really is. So I hope that, he spent some research. We go over to, them on their date. They're doing some date shit. I don't remember what the fuck they were doing. But they eventually get back to their hotel room, and it's late at night. And the dude is blabbering on about something. And the girl just starts turning off the lights one by one. And
he's talking about what they could do before dinner. He's like, we can go see a movie, we can go,
And she walks over until, like, all the lights are dim. And she has her back to him, and she undoes the buttons on like her dress or robe or whatever she was wearing, and lets it drop down, and then eventually takes off like her underwear and gets into bed. And she's talking about how she wants him to see all of her and all this shit. She pulls up the sheets that she's under until you can see like her thighs, and you see she has 2 big scars on her right thigh, and she says, I burned myself when I was younger. And you're like, oh, okay, and then eventually she throws the sheet to the side, and so now she's laying there naked in front of him, and he's just kind of standing there. And she goes, throughout the whole time they've been dating, she talks about how different he is than these other guys, and how she hopes that he's different from these other guys. And so she goes, will you, I want you to love me. Can you love me, only me, and shit. And he's like, yeah, and so he starts taking off his clothes. And she just keeps repeating that sentence where she's like, only me. She's like kind of crying. And then, presumably they end up banging. That's what I assume happens. And the guy wakes up the next morning and she's gone. Apparently She just vanished overnight. Just ran out on him. So when he gets back to town, he's telling his business partner buddy about this, and he asked the business partner, he's like, can you help me find her address? I gotta find her, you know? And the business partner is like, basically just straight up, he's like, you're fucking stupid. He's like, you're a lonely old man. You know, you just met this girl. You've let her take over, you know, your whole life. You know, the movie tanked, you know, we had, you know, and so the guy's like, fine, I'll find her by myself. And he just like gets out of the room. If I remember correctly, I think that's the last time we see the business partner in the movie, right?
Oh, he gets pissed at him. He's like, fuck you. I'll do it myself.
He does. But yeah, I don't think we ever see him again.
Yeah, it's the last time.
So the guy's trying to figure out how to find this girl. So he goes and looks at her application again, and on her application, it's written down where her ballet school was. So he goes to this ballet studio, but it's like it looks like it's closed down and it's boarded up in the front. But he just starts like taking the boards off, and eventually climbs through and gets. Even though it looked very pristine on the inside when he got in there, like it still looked like a good, ballet studio. And when he walks in, there's this old dude in a wheelchair playing piano in the corner, facing away from him, with this fire next to him. This like fucking barrel fire thing going on. And so he's like, hello, I'm looking for Akira or whatever her name was. And the guy is like, get out, And he repeats it again. He's like, I'm looking for her. She went to ballet here. I can't find her. And eventually, the dude in the wheelchair just starts laughing. And you're like, well, that's never good. When someone's facing away from you and they just start laughing to themselves, So the guy turns around to him and he starts going like, oh, did you see her? Did you smell her? Did you hold her in your arms, and all this shit? And the dude's like, shut the fuck up, Like, he starts getting defensive about it. This is apparently the ballet director that ran the studio, because the guy asked him, are you so and so, and he's like, yeah. In the middle of all this stuff where he's laughing at him and he's like asking him all these questions, we get flashes to the girl when she was young, dancing around in the ballet class, and then one of her sitting down on the ground and spreading her legs, and that old dude taking these fucking iron, like these metal pinchers. I don't know what they were in this fire.
Chopsticks?
Yeah. And taking them out, and he like crawls towards this like 12-year-old girl in between her legs.
I think 12 is being
reasonable, and burning the inside of her thighs. So that's the real reason how she burned her thighs. And throughout the movie, there's one that I'll get to later when we get to it. But throughout the movie, I think there was more than just like that type of abuse going on. I think there was clearly probably some molestation going on there as well. Also, it must have already happened at this point. I think it has, but I missed it. The girl talks about how when she was younger, like, her dad died, and I think, like, her mom couldn't deal with it for a minute, so she sent her to live with her uncle. And her uncle's wife was very abusive and would, make her sit in cold baths during the winter.
Yeah, in the snow and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and she pushed her down the stairs and broke her, as she puts it, her shoulder bones. Which I was like, all right, I don't know if I've ever heard anyone just say shoulder bone, but, and do all that. And I don't know if the uncle was ever abusive at all, but, usually when you have one, you probably have two, I can't imagine you have one, but, and regardless of what's happened, by the end of the movie, what opinions you have, I do think that she was probably telling the truth about all this stuff that happened, right? Like,
I don't think she lied about anything.
I don't think she lied about anything. Yeah, I think this was all like what built her into.
Other than her initial application.
Yeah. She lied about that stuff.
Mm.
So we see the burn thing, and the guy's laughing, and then he stands up, and I don't even know how to describe it. It looks like, I think his feet are gone, Tyler, and I think he has metal feet things in there, and he's wearing like this weird looking leg thing around his real leg, where these boards are on the bottom of his feet. That's what it looked like to me.
He's wearing classic Shogun, like, samurai slippers, but they're attached to fake feet that he has on his legs, which he may or may not have feet in.
Yeah.
So it's like putting on a pair of boots that's made to look like feet and slippers.
Uh-huh. But,
and you never do find out if he has feet. And there's reasons in this movie you would think he might not have them.
Yeah, and plus, when you look at it, it does look like, if you look in, like, you can see like a metal thing in there, so you're not. But yeah, and and I was like, what the fuck is going on, you know? And so once again, he tells the dude, he's like, go home. And so the guy finally leaves. He leaves and he goes to find that bar that the girl supposedly works at. And when he gets there, he sees that on the outside of the door, like where the mail slot is, there's just a bunch of mail that hasn't been picked up yet. And as he's looking at it, he hears someone go, no one's in there. And he looks up and there's a guy standing there. And the guy's like, oh yeah, it's been closed down for a little bit. The owner was killed. And he's like, oh, how was she killed, you know, or whatever. And she's like, oh, she was chopped up into little pieces. And, you know, he goes, the weird thing is when the cops came and picked up or cleaned up the scene, they found extra pieces. They found 3 fingers and an ear. Oh, God.
3 fingers and an ear. And a tongue.
Yeah, and a tongue. And when it says the tongue, we get a flash of a tongue sitting in a pool of blood on the ground.
And this is the worst part of the movie.
No, it's great. What do you mean?
Not the tongue. His reaction.
Yeah, when then
after he just throws himself back against the wall.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he throws himself against the wall, and then the guy's like, sir? And he's like, ah, again, he gets like double jump scared.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, so, you know, don't go in there. Also, I think there was a thing in here where he says that the owner had an affair with, like,
another lady or something.
Yeah. And so, once again, keep that, the affair thing. I was like, okay, you know. This is when, after this scene, we're back at the house, and the dog sitter lady is leaving, and she puts down some food for the beagle, and he's eating. And as the lady's leaving, we get a first-person shot of someone watching her leave, and then them turning and going into the house. And they break into the house, and they're looking around. And when they get in there, they find a picture of the dude's dead wife on like the, sitting on the thing or whatever. And then we see them run over to the dude's whiskey that he drinks every night. And as they run over to the whiskey, it cuts back to the dog hearing this, and the dog goes walking in that direction. And I was like, no. So it cuts from that to the guy coming home. As he's coming, it does a cool shot I did like, where as the dog walks away, you see the light dim, indicating that like the time, and now it's nighttime or whatever. And it's like a slow dim, and the son's calling, leaving a message on the machine, saying that he's staying the night at the friend's house or whatever. He'll be back later. So the dude comes home when he hears this message, and he's like, okay. He goes over, sits down in his chair, pours a glass of whiskey, and takes a shot, and takes a sip, and you're kind of like waiting for something to happen, because the last thing we saw was the person run over to the whiskey jar. And then all of a sudden we see him start to like blink, and he's like rubbing his head, and he's like breathing a little heavier. And And he gets up and he tries to and he's like, and he tries to walk to a phone, I guess, or something. But he ends up stopping and falling back. And when he wakes up, he's in the restaurant with that girl again. And this is when, he says, he's like, I'm not sure I would see you again. I thought you, ran out. And she's like, no. So this is when she starts telling him about the uncle's wife, abusing her and shit. This is when she was 7, apparently, was when the uncle's wife was abusing her. And so you kind of know this guy's in a dream, but you're still like, all right, how are they going to reveal it? And the way they reveal it is as they're talking, the guy's like, looks over and he sees his dead wife and his son at that age that his son was when the wife died, sitting there. And he's like, oh, my family, this is a great time to introduce you to. And you're like, oh, okay, this dude's totally out, So he goes over, introduces the dead wife to the girl, and she just starts going, she's no good for you. She's no good for you, and yelling and all this shit. She's yelling. He's like, what are you talking about? And then he flashes and he's back he's in the girl's apartment now with the wood floor that we saw. And the girl is standing across from him and she comes walking over and drops down to her knees and is like messing with his belt. And so he's like, Kira, and she starts to give him a beej. And then when he that just sounds ridiculous saying that. And then when he looks down and she looks up, it's the girl from the work who's been really weird throughout this movie. And this is when she says, I know it was just that one night and it was a mistake, but I relied on you. I thought you were going to be good for me, all this shit. And so that's kind of your confirmation of, okay, that's what was going on with those people.
The reason I think that's not it is because in a second here it gets real crazy and it goes through and it changes to like 5 different women throughout this whole thing. And one of them is his son's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, well, this isn't real. This didn't happen.
He didn't sleep with her.
So I'm assuming everything else is fake too.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might be supposed to be people he's lusted after. But I do think that he probably slept with that girl. Just because of how weird she's been throughout the movie. Like, clearly there was a history there.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, but
I
mean, it's what you think, right? Not what you think, but it's what the viewer thinks, Yeah. You have to make your own thing, because he could have gave 2 shits about her getting married.
Yeah.
Or anything else. Like, he just did not care. That's why I'm like, no. I thought he was
the married thing. Well, when she mentioned she's getting married, there is a moment of when he's like, "Oh, okay," But
yeah, but I think that's about his own loneliness and his own inability to find a way.
Yeah, it goes from her. He pushes her away and falls down. That's when it turns into the son's girlfriend and comes crawling over, and he's like, "Oh, I think it's after what we see in a minute, but he also does get a flash of the nanny." Having sex with someone on the stairs. And she's like, I told you, a man can't survive without a woman's touch or whatever. Yeah, and it goes through all these women. And then eventually after the son's girlfriend, it turns into him bumping into the sack that's on the ground that we saw thrashing around. And so he's like, oh shit, what is this, So he goes walking over to it and he undoes the top, and he goes to open it up, and someone thrashes around, and he falls down again. And out of this sack comes crawling this dude who both his feet are amputated. His fingers are missing. He only had the ring finger, I think, was all that was left. And his ear was gone. And his tongue is gone. It's all sewn up. And so this is where the extra body parts came from. And he's coming out. And he's like, "Ugh," and he keeps going. Mealtime is what he's getting out through these mumbles or whatever. I'm gonna assume that was probably Shibata, the music director. I would guess, since he was been missing for 1.5 years.
No, I'm gonna guess it was the guy from the bar.
What bar?
The bar she worked at where he went crazy.
Oh, but
And
she worked for a girl.
I think it was both.
Oh,
I don't think
no.
Shabato's a real person.
Well, they said Shabbat was real, and he's been missing for a year and a half.
Maybe it might be him.
I don't know.
This movie doesn't give you a lot of answers.
Yeah. But, so he's begging for food, right? And the dude's, like, backing away. And then through all this, we start hearing, like, this, like, vomiting noise. And you're like, what is that? And then it pans, and we see the girl is standing, like, right there. And he's like, oh. And so he, like, gets up against the wall. And she comes walking over with a bowl full of vomit. And I was like, And then she puts it down, and my man's does not even hesitate. He's like, and I was like, I was like, no. It was so fucking gross.
I never thought that was vomit. I thought it was just soup or something.
Oh no, it was vomit as fuck. Apparently, it was even real vomit. At least when she's carrying it out, that's apparently her real vomit. Because that girl is apparently a method actor, and so she was like, I'm gonna vomit into this bowl. I think obviously they switched it out when the guy started eating it, but yeah. So I think that's a first for the podcast that we've had a movie where someone's chugging down vomit.
No.
Haven't
eaten yet today. That's great.
Yeah. So chugs or he's eating vomit and shit. And she's petting his head, and then once again she turns into that little girl that we've seen dancing around, and she like looks over to the guy and says something, and as it looks over to the guy, we see the old dude from the ballet studio standing there again, and he's like walking towards her with the burning things. It pans back, and now it's the girl full grown again in her ballet outfit. And she spreads her legs for him, and he, like, burns her. We get a bunch of other... Like, we started getting flashes of all this other shit. We then get a flash of her creeping up behind the dude playing piano and wrapping a wire around his neck. And she's like, this wire can cut skin and bone so easily. And she starts to tighten it, and he's, like, bleeding. And he's like, I've never been unhappy with you. And she's like, oh, that's funny. Because I've been unhappy, every day of my life or whatever. And she just starts sawing to the point that her head eventually falls off. Or the guy's head falls off. And also, in the middle of this is when I think I mentioned, because we're getting flashes of like her dancing around, and it pans over, and we see the ballet dude sitting in his chair, and he's like jerking off under his robe.
He's jerking off to the young version.
Yeah. And it was like, ugh.
That was the part where I said that it gets creepier.
Yeah.
There's worse scenes in this movie.
So I'm not sure if she really killed that guy, because unless she did it after the dude showed up, or if this has all been. Yeah.
It's a dream.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, the guy eventually wakes up and he's back in the real world. He's laying down on his ground in his house, and he looks.
No. He wakes up in bed with her.
No, that's after. Because that's when the son eventually walks in.
No, what?
Yeah.
Doesn't he wake back up at the hotel when she's like laying on her chest?
That's when the son walks in. Because then she creeps up on him.
Again, then?
What?
When does he pass out again then?
When the son walks in. When the son walks in and she okay, we'll get to it. So we see her in the closet, like putting on this bondage, like leather, like fucking slaughter robe looking thing, and these gloves. And she's getting all this shit ready. And as she walks out the door, it pans over, and we see the fucking beagle laying there dead. And it was a gruesome looking dead dog. Like, usually when they show a dead dog in the movie, it's just like, dead. But this was like, the whole thing's like, Like the dog looked real jacked up, and I was like, oh man. She goes over to him, tells him that he's paralyzed, but his nerves still have feeling, so he can enjoy all the pain and shit.
I don't know if that's a real thing. I hear about it.
It's made up. The director was like, we just needed something to keep that guy there, so he was like, we just made it up. The weird thing is,
a lot of things though.
You do.
Where it's like, no.
Yeah. I'm sure you could probably make it happen, like a mixture of like, I don't know. Then she goes over and takes that needle. We get the shot that I say that's on the poster, the only thing I've ever seen, which is her with this big needle getting ready. And she goes over and like stabs him in the tongue with it. And the weird thing is, I thought that was going to stop him from being able to talk, but he still is able to talk throughout this. And he's able to move quite a bit throughout this too. More than I thought he should have been able to, but still. So she like stabs him in the tongue with this needle. This is when I wrote down, Tyler, my theory, right? Which is probably wrong. But my theory about this is I don't remember the guy ever telling her about his dead wife. And I don't remember him ever telling her about the son or his family or any of that. So I think when she broke into this house and saw the pictures of the dead wife and stuff, she might have thought that this dude legit is still like married. And because she has a line in here where she's like, you're just like you just met me and wanted to have sex with me and all this stuff. And I don't think she realized that like he was looking for like a whole new marriage. She broke in and saw all this stuff. Clearly, obviously, this chick is crazy either, because she's done this to, we assume that she killed the owner of that bar because of the affair. That's what I would, whatever the affair, whatever relationship she had with them. I don't know why she would have done anything to Shibata, because they didn't really get in far enough to that, unless Shibata and the owner had something going on. Yeah, but that was because she was like, she came in and thought this guy was just using her like all the other people had been. And that's what like was like, oh, he's just like everyone else. Now keep in mind, I say that, but then right after that, she does get to a point where she's like, oh, I'm going to have to teach your son pain too. And he's like, leave my son alone. And she's like, no, you can only love me, not anyone else. And so that's when I'm like, well, maybe she's just crazy. You know what I mean? So I don't know. So anyway, this is, she starts pulling out these needles that I think are like slightly thicker than acupuncture needles, it looked like to me. And she just starts sticking it into his stomach. And she keeps repeating, it's deeper in Japanese, but I don't remember, but it was like, maki, maki, maki. Like, she just kept saying it over and over again. And the dude's like grabbing onto it, and he's getting stabbed in the stomach. And eventually, when it pans out, I thought she put like 3 or 4. It pans out, there's like 30 needles in his stomach. And I was like, God damn. So she gets done with his stomach, and he's like, oh, thank God. But then she immediately just moves and straddles herself where she's over the needles, basically like pushing them further into his stomach. And then starts taking needles and sticking them into his face. When we see it eventually, she's sticking them like under his eyes. There's like 2 on the right and like 1 on the left. And she's sticking them into his eyes. She then gets done and she's like, like across the eyes. I was like, oh my God. This is when she gets up and tells him that, his son has to feel pain too. That's the only real way you can appreciate life. Very Saw-esque, like John Kramer or whatever was all about, you had to experience this type of pain to appreciate life. Because like everyone he had, or that's not everyone. It used to be like they were suicidal. That was that first chick. What was her name? Amanda? The one in the bear trap mask. But she was like, tried to kill herself. And so his punishment was like, all right, now you're gonna die or you could live. And it was like, well, I'd probably just choose death. I mean, I kind of wanted that anyway, you know what I mean? But she lived. Shout out Amanda. um. So yeah, she's like, you have to be mine completely. You can love me, only me. As she's saying this, she starts pulling out that wire thing again and tells him the same thing we saw her tell the piano guy, where she's like, this can cut skin and bone so easily. And then she puts like a cuff thing around his ankle that I think is supposed to stop the blood flow. And then she just starts wrapping the wire around his ankle and just starts fucking just starts sawing and just cuts dude's foot off. Apparently, by the way, it's written down in my notes, this is when we get the flash of her dancing around and the guy beating off in the chair. So it was during this part. But
yeah, you've already seen him get killed.
Yeah. She saws his foot off. I think at this point, by the way, the guy probably would have passed out from pain. Like, the guy's awake the whole time, and they never mentioned her giving him anything to keep him awake. Like, I imagine, I mean, fucking Willem Dafoe, what even, like, she hit him in the dick with like a fucking hammer or something, and this dude passed out for like 20 minutes while she drilled a hole into his leg, remember? Like, and this dude's awake through a whole wire amputation. So she cuts off his one foot. We go outside to where we see her through the window, and she like takes it, throws it against the glass, and then she immediately starts to work on the next one. But as she's doing that, we hear the front door open and the son come in and saying, "Dad, I'm home," you know. And so she's like, "Oh shit!" So she stands up, she goes over to her bag and pulls out this thing that's like a. It just looks like a perfume thing. I don't really know what it was supposed to do. Like, we'll see her
knockout gas or something,
I guess, but yeah, I don't know. But she pulls out and she's like, and she goes running off. The kid walks in, sees his dad laying there, and he's like, "Dad, what happened?" You know? And then from behind him, the door opens up, and the girl comes creeping out and goes to spray him. And this is when the guy wakes up and he's back in the hotel room with the girl. And so he wakes up and he's like, "Oh shit." And he looks over and she's laying there. He immediately checks his feet and they're there. And he's like, "Oh, thank God," you know? So he gets out of the bed. He like goes and like splashes water on his face in the bathroom. And he's like looking at himself and he's like, "All right, you're good," you know? The girl comes in. She's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "Oh, you know, nothing, just bad dream." They go back to bed. They're sitting there, they're laying there, and the girl's talking to him, and she's like, "You know, I'm glad, you know, you chose to love me and shit." And then she's like, "I've thought about your proposal." And he's like, my proposal?" And she's like, "Yeah, my answer is yes." And he's like, "What proposal?" And she's like, "Your proposal." And this is when I think he realizes he never got to the point that he asked her to marry her. So he kind of realizes, oh fuck, I'm in this dream world again, you know? And so she like rolls over and snuggles into him, and the guy tries to hesitate for a little bit to not close his eyes. But eventually he does, and he wakes back up. And he's right back where he was, and the girl's coming up, and she comes up behind the kid, and I was like, all right, what's she gonna do? And she comes up, and she goes, "Ch-" and the kid turns around, he's like, "What the fuck was that?" He's like, "What was that?" And she, like, sprays at him again, he's like, "Hey," you know? So the kid goes running away. She's chasing him with, like, this spray bottle. They go running up the stairs. She eventually gets on top of him and starts to spray into his face. But the kid just takes his feet and kicks her, and she goes flying down the stairs and hits the ground, and we pan down to see her, and I thought this was a really cool broken neck effect. I don't think I've ever seen this type in a movie, where you could kind of see it bulging out the side, but then you heard her like trying to swallow, and it was like, you know what I mean?
The bone would like push out a little.
Yeah, it was a really cool broken neck effect. And she's dead, maybe. And the guy comes down the stairs and he goes to call 911. To get help for his dad. The dad's laying there and he looks over and the girl's like still sitting there looking at him kind of with her arms stretched out. And this is when she starts to recite everything that she said to him up to this point about, everything you've heard her say at this point about, I'm glad you're not like other men, all this stuff. She starts saying it there as, she's laying there. And it's playing like this sad piano music as it's zooming in on her face. And then we get one last shot of the little girl, the little ballet girl, taking off her ballet shoes. And then that's the end of the movie. And then we cut to a really jarring, shitty music for the credits. And I was like, y'all could have just kept the piano music going. Like, I don't know what that music was at the end. But here's what I was going to say about that, her saying all them words. Is when I looked it up, people were saying that that's him hallucinating, how she's still, like, coming for him and shit. That's not how I saw it. I still think she was alive there. And she was just, like, in her death reciting those words. Basically, like, it was a script of her own. And this whole thing, Audition. And this whole thing was her script to get this guy. And, who knows if she's used it on, probably all these other people, whoever else she's done this to. And this is her personal script, and she's reading the words play by play of everything she says. And that's the way I saw it, but other people seem to think that it's like a hallucination this guy has. Which, at the same time, if that ended up being what it was, probably makes sense, because that guy's been having like 15,000 hallucinations in the last 20 minutes. But I saw it differently. But that's the end of the movie, Tyler.
I can't state how much I just hated this whole thing. Again, I don't know what to believe, what not to believe. I mean, Homegirl was crazy. I'll give you that.
Homegirl was crazy.
But, like, the main character of the show literally made a fake show just to lure in young women that he could try to seduce.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, I mean, no one deserves to get their foot cut off or whatever. But
yeah, the weird thing, I think she's still in a very childlike state of mind, because I don't think she ever had a childhood based off of her, stories.
And there's a crazy thing that she said.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
You did it,
but she's like, dancing is the only thing that keeps the darkness away, and then I couldn't dance.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, when she stopped dancing, that's when she went like full on fucking crazy. And I mean, they never talk about how she broke her hip, but like, I'm sure.
No, I'm sure it had something to do with either the uncle's wife or that dude, But there's a part where, as she's sawing off the guy's foot, if you look at her, she looks very little girlish, like playing with a new toy. Yeah. So that's just kind of what I took for, like, she might still be a very underdeveloped, like, brain-wise, even though she's clearly a master plotter to sucker these people into, doing all this shit. I saw this, apparently, that when this film debuted at the Rotterdam Film Festival, it had a record number of walkouts. One woman, who actually sat through the entire film, immediately walked out of the ensuing Q&A session, past the stage, and yelled out to the director, "You are sick," which made him laugh in delight. That's what I wrote down. Heavy metal musician and horror movie director and actor, which I don't think I've seen him act in any of the movies we watch, but Rob Zombie admitted that he found this movie to be the most creepy and unsettling of any horror movie he's ever watched, which I see a lot of people say that about a lot of movies we've watched, and I didn't really find this,
What is the creepiest, most unsettling movie you've ever watched? I didn't think this doesn't even hit my top 50.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, literally, more than half of this movie is just a drama. Like, it's a romantic drama. And then that was kind of, I read that was supposed to be a thing where like the movie's supposed to be a romantic, and then the twist is that it turns into the horror movie at the end. But the whole marketing for the movie was the girl on the poster with so it kind of ruined that. But that's what the guy wanted. What is the most unsettling movie I've ever watched?
I think it's just a crazy ex-girlfriend movie. People put this in with Cannibal Holocaust. They put it in with Human Centipede and stuff.
I've never seen Human Centipede.
I don't see how. Like,
yeah, I remember. If we're just thinking recent, I remember Hereditary was legitimately unsettling for me the first time watching it. I remember Midsummer, which I still stand by as a fucking piece of shit, and for some reason people love that movie. That first, and you've seen it, that first like 10 minutes with the sister and the family, that scene of the firefighters coming in the house is legitimately one of the most unsettling scenes of any movie ever. And then the rest of the movie tanked, and I was like, okay. Now we're in a field with flowers. I don't know. Cannibal Holocaust was pretty high up there. There's a lot of animal death in there. That's one movie where it got done, and I legitimately just sat there like, ugh. You know, like, I was like, oh my God. But I don't know.
For something to be truly unsettling, it'd have to, like, change my life in some sort of way, right?
Well,
like,
you can attest to this. Bags with Cannibal Holocaust, what was it? Like, the next 2 weeks, randomly at work, would just keep going, the turtle, Thomas, the turtle, about Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, it's just him joking, though.
No, he had nightmares.
Just a sick sense of humor. I can't think of anything we've watched that like truly blew my mind or found so unsettling that like I had to turn it off. I didn't like Cannibal Holocaust just because I don't like cruelty to animals for movies' sake.
Yeah, which
but
is
it's
funny
not like
because
an unsettling thing,
we have episode 100 coming up soon. And I don't know what to do with it, and one of my thoughts was doing Cannibal Holocaust. But clearly, there's the animal cruelty-free version that you could watch, which if we ended up doing it, I would probably watch that one, seeing as how I've already sat through the full one, so I can still kind of, I got the experience, I don't need it again.
I mean, I figured we had to do Puppet Master 4.
I've thought doing Puppet Master 4 for episode 100 as the joke that maybe like 5 viewers would get. Papa Hades, I'm sure, would probably get it, but I don't know if, I thought about doing Puppet Master 4. I've thought about just us rewatching Society. And like, because now the show is kind of different how we do it, so I thought maybe that would be interesting. But I don't know. But those were my 3 thoughts originally: was Cannibal, and then Puppet Master, and doing Society again. Or there is a movie called The Graveyard Shift, and I've considered doing that, but I've heard that movie's kind of a poopy movie. Which, to be fair, the other movies probably would be, too. But
that movie where it was the last house on the left. Was pretty unsettling, like as far as rape and shit goes, right?
When they start like, I can't remember if it's when they're raping her or they're stabbing her, and it's playing that like, that like, I remember that legitimately. I was like, oh my God, yeah.
I mean, I would say that's unsettling, but this doesn't.
It's unsettling, yeah. The like I said, every time we do one of these movies, I'll see someone say something about it, and I'll be like, really, this one? Like, I didn't really. But, he said that. Yeah. And so, I just wrote that down.
A movie we haven't watched kind of scarred me for life.
Yeah.
But The Mist. The ending of The Mist.
The Mist, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the thing, is I've thought about us watching The Mist, and I'm sure we will. But, like, that's kind of all anyone wants to talk about in that movie, right? Is the ending. Yeah. Even though, from what I remember, the rest of that movie's pretty good.
It's really good, yeah. It's not
bad. And God, that one lady's in it, and she's just, the like super religious lady in the supermarket. It's like,
Well, I mean, the whole movie's in the supermarket, but yeah.
That's true, yeah. This is when, I told. Apparently, this was a novel written by Ryo Ishibashi. Wait, no, that's the actor. Hold on. Where was the novel? Fuck. Hold on. A novel by Ryo Mukarakiyama. There you go. um, all my experience playing Yakuza still haven't gotten any better with these names. I know like the main Yakuza guys, but that's about it. But anyway, the director of this movie wanted the movie to end at the onset of the torture scene that the film is now famous for, which that seems like a very weird ending to me. If they ended it with just like her about to torture the guy and that's how they ended it. But however, one of the producers on the movie told the director to, quote, be a man and see it through to the end. So in the original novel, the dad loses both of his feet. In the original screenplay, he didn't lose any feet. So eventually the guy decided to call it down the middle, and the guy lost one foot. So even though his second foot was kind of fucked up too. So I'm sure he's going to have to do work on that. But that's also whatever I think in the book Misery. I think that like dude gets his legs cut off by like an axe, but in the movie he just like gets his ankles broken and shit by like the fucking sledgehammer. But yeah, that's the little notes I had. The budget, or not the budget, but it made $242,000 worldwide, American. So there's that. Gonna find a budget for it. But yeah, let's do best of, worst of for Audition. My best of, luckily because I didn't get it spoiled for me, is gonna be that first scene of when the girl starts smiling when the phone rings, and then the fucking sack on the floor just starts thrashing around, and you realize there's a person in it. Because I had never seen that before, and I was like, holy shit, when that happened. So that was pretty cool. My worst of, honestly, is going to be the audition scene with like the 10-minute comedy bit of audition. It just went way too long. I wanted them to get to the point. It's like they had all these ideas for jokes for these ladies, but they couldn't decide on just like the one or two they wanted. So they were like, let's just put all of them. Like there was just so many weird, quirky things in there. I didn't like it. So that's my worst of. What are you gonna do for best of, worst of, Tyler?
Trying to think, I hadn't even really thought of it.
I finished my water. That was
That's
supposed
the
to be
best
my
part of
water,
this
boy.
movie. But I don't know. Like, I really liked when the lady goes to give him blow him, and they do
It's
that
good.
scene of like the 5 different ladies or whatever.
Once again, I mentioned Antichrist. I'm pretty sure that happens in Antichrist. No. Yeah? We've watched another movie where that's happened, where the dude like starts picturing the other girl that he's sleeping with, and he's like, But maybe Horns with Daniel Radcliffe. Maybe it happened to that. I don't remember. But anyway, keep going. Sorry.
That'd probably be my favorite scene, and by favorite, I'm stretching it because, like I said,
I don't
it's
know. I don't
I don't know
know.
why. I don't know why. I just don't like.
Yeah.
I wish I had an answer.
I don't know why going into it, like I knew you weren't gonna like it, even though this kind of seems like a movie you would like.
I like really psychological like things, and
Yeah.
this just wasn't enough. I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like
But me, like I even like the 50 minutes that you shit talk, where they're just like
oh my
going
god,
on
no.
dates and stuff. Like I even like that stuff.
It was just I don't know, it just drug on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But like I feel like we lose a lot to translation. Like if we were in that culture, a lot more of this movie would make sense. Like I think you can make this same movie in like America and have it be completely
Bill
like
Murray,
kind of
Scarlett
different.
Johansson. That was who was in Lost in Johansson. Go ahead. That was the second time you've said it, and I was like, "Who?" I had to look up who was in that movie. Go ahead, keep going.
But anyways.
Sorry.
But I think it's just like I don't know. Maybe I'm like too old for it. Maybe it's like a younger person's movie.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, just you talking about it, like this hour or whatever. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
I think Thomas just muted a fart, by the way.
No. Oh,
But
hey,
like,
congrats to Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning. Just hit 30,000 views.
nice.
Nice.
But yeah, so I don't like I said, this movie was just I'm gonna be honest. I don't see why Homegirl is like a cult fan favorite.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't really. Maybe because there's not that many horror female villains I can think of.
Yeah, if you had to
But
pick her or the chick from The Ring, you'd pick the chick from The Ring, right? Even the girl from Ringu.
I've never watched. Well, yeah, they're kind of. Well, they're not the same, right? The Ring
Yeah.
is Samara, and the Ringu is. I don't know. If whenever we watch it, I'm gonna pick Ringu, just because that's the original. Even though I heard that the Ring is supposed to be good, they're
I
both
think
different. I
I've
think.
seen The Ring. They're both good. But like I mean, I understand if you want like a positive female, whatever. But like this, she isn't positive at all.
Yeah. Let's talk best horror female villain. Go. The first one that comes to mind is Mama Voorhees from Friday 13th.
Are we talking like the best villain? Like, does she have to be a bad person, or just the best female in a horror
Well,
movie?
clearly she's the antagonist. You know, she's the bad guy. Because that was the first one that pops in my head. That was always Mama Voorhees.
Shit. I mean, to be honest, there's not a lot of them.
It
And
doesn't
that's
seem
fine.
like it, right?
I'm gonna say Jennifer's Body. Uh,
Never watched it.
I haven't either, but she's just super hot in that. What about
Oh,
the chick
yeah.
from Species?
Species?
Yeah, it's what's her name? She's super famous. She's like an alien, and she's like eating people,
Oh.
and she's super hot. She's super hot from my day, so I don't know if you would think she's super hot.
Yeah.
Is that the name of the movie? Maybe I'm wrong.
What do you think? Splice?
No, it's Species.
No.
Let me find her name. I just brought it up.
All right.
What the fuck? Why is she not in the first Natasha Hendrich? Is that it? I'm not seeing.
Oh. I literally look. Can I just say I looked up female horror villains? Do you want to take a guess of how many characters it gave me?
How many?
It gave me five. Five
Okay.
characters were the first thing that pops up. The five it gave me, Annie Wilkers or Annie Wilkes. Yeah, Annie Wilkes, the from Misery, which I'm like, okay, you know. Carrie
Pretty good.
White, which I'm like, all right, you know, I forgot about Carrie. I like that movie, so Carrie. Also, two Stephen Kings right off the bat. Uh, Annabelle, which I don't know if that counts because that's a demon inside of a of a a doll. And then Samara from The Ring, and then Margaret White.
Who's that little midget bitch from the adoption?
I don't know. I know
Or
what
is it
you're
a little
talking
kid?
about.
Yeah.
No, it's the full grown person. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the five it gave me, and I was like, man, no. But oh,
Bro, this
Margaret, it gave me the two characters from the same movie. Margaret White is Carrie White's mom. So there you go. Anyway,
I don't
um,
think I picked the bad part of this movie. The son was horrible. I
the
didn't
son
like
was
the
only
dad
bad.
acting.
The son was only bad because he didn't have, like I said, I thought he was gonna have like a way bigger part. The movie starts with him.
I think the girl did a great job acting in this, and I think the
She
guy
did.
felt like he was getting shown up. So that's why he made everything ultra dramatic and ultra.
Yeah.
I don't want to say emo, but you know what I'm saying. Like
Uh huh.
I don't know. I feel like he went full Shakespeare or something, and
Mm.
it like didn't need it. So
Um. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, they did. I guess there wasn't really any way to end their story, but it does kind of feel like they dropped that one character, the office character, the girl that I think he had the one night stand with. Kind of seems like they dropped that story, and like I said, the friend just kind of disappears. Which I mean, when the guy leaves his friend right after that is when he goes to the studio and then the bar, and then when he comes home is when he gets poisoned. So I mean, I guess that's the end of the movie. But anyway, I think that's about it for Audition.
Yeah, I mean, tell us what you think. Tell us why you like this movie, because I don't know why.
I like it.
Thomas just enjoyed it. I don't think you can really put a.
I can't. Yeah, I don't know if I could pinpoint. I just liked it. Maybe I liked it because then when I looked up stuff about it, I had like different views on what it meant than like other people, and I was like, y'all don't know what you're talking about,
Including the director.
Including,
like,
yeah. Well, that was another thing is because those people who were like that was a hallucination. The director has said that wasn't a hallucination. So like I think I know what the director was doing. But anyway, that's the end of this one. Next week, Tyler, I got a good one picked for us. I believe we're traveling back to 2006. So
were you alive at that point?
I was, believe it or not, 2006. But next week, Tyler, we will be dipping our little paws into the classic 2006 monster slasher movie starring the one and only mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, Glenn Jacobs, aka Kane, when we watch See No Evil. So looking forward to that. Have you ever watched See No Evil?
I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever fully watched it.
Those movies that like WWE made, right?
It's the very first WWE movie, and then after this, after this is when they go into the Marine and making all those.
Sniper or whatever.
Yeah.
No, it is Marine. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
went to the theater.
Really
yeah. I went to the theater to see The Marine when it came out with John Cena because I was a little kid. Like, who, John Cena? And then the bad guy is T2. What's up?
Can we make it a double feature?
I don't know. I mean,
or we do two movies at once? We can do See No Evil and No One Lives.
Oh.
It's another WWE movie.
Yeah, but it's yeah. I don't want to watch that one.
It's so good. Have you seen it?
Yeah, you made me watch it.
So good. It's so good.
And Beaches in it. I'm not. Like I remember liking it if I remember right.
We watched.
But and then the fat dude, the bodyguard, is a wrestler, and that's why it's the WWE pictures.
What's his name?
Eventually, they started making movies that were WWE pictures, but didn't have any wrestlers in them. They were just legit trying to make movies. But I can't remember because that Leprechaun remake that they had on Sci-Fi. I remember Hornswoggle plays the Leprechaun, but I can't remember if it was a WWE Films or if he just was the Leprechaun. But anyway. But yeah, so See No Evil. By the way, anytime you want, Tyler, we got the Leprechaun series, but I don't think we could cover them without Maverick being, because he's the one that keeps bothering us to watch Leprechaun.
Maverick's dead.
He is dead. I don't know what he's doing. He should be back by now, but he's not.
So, he never will be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fix food, but okay. See No Evil.
See No Evil.
Starring mayor of Minnesota or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's the mayor of. Nevada? I don't know.
Knox County, Tennessee.
Knox County.
Yeah.
I wonder if we go there, we can meet him.
Probably.
Not that far.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chokeslam his ass though.
Shit. Walk in like I'm gonna set your parents on fire again, you bald headed fuck.
But like, look, Socko, and I'm gonna have Socko on my left hand. He's like, that really wasn't my thing. And then I'm gonna chokeslam with the right.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah.
Got him.
And then I get naked and I go, hello, ladies. By the way, uh, they just had WrestleMania and they had a match where you probably saw me liking some of the stuff from it. But this guy, Sami Zayn, was wrestling Johnny Knoxville because they had a whole weird thing going
He
on.
said it was the greatest match of his life.
Yeah, it legitimately, like, it's very controversial whether people like it. The only people that seem to like it are people that are fans of, like, Jackass growing up. Because they have, like, Pontius come in and the whole party boy outfit. And at first he's doing the dance, but he's wearing, like, a shirt and pants. And I was like, oh, they're not going to let him go. But then he strips and he's in the straight up, like, ass cheeks jiggling. And I was like, ah! And it was something. We have to, one of these days, we got to do our next Curtain Jerks. It's almost time for a new episode. So
I mean, the other ones have just been blowing up. People have been raving and wanting another.
Yeah, I know. They've really been. Yeah,
and it's like, guys, come on.
Yeah.
We're very busy.
So we'll have to figure out a day where we can get something done this week.
I think my other day off's Friday.
Yeah. Hey, my day's off Friday. Look at that. Friday.
But I have to work a week full of like 6 to 4s.
Yeah.
That's just brutal. But it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for watching.
Right. I'm going to go cook food.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. See No Evil. Link to the gaming channel and the wrestling shit in the description. Shorts should be coming out. And, yeah, anyway. See you guys next week.